It was just after midnight on December 3rd, 1967. In a sterile operating room in Cape Town, South Africa, the world held its breath, though it didn't know it yet. A 45-year-old grocer named Louis Wishkansky lay on the table, his chest open, his failing heart stilled. Standing over him, with trembling hands and eyes burning with focus, was a surgeon few outside of South Africa had ever heard of, Dr. Christiaan Barnard. In his gloved hand, he held another man's heart. And in that moment, the boundary between science fiction and reality blurred forever. Christiaan Neethling Barnard was born on November 8, 1922, in a small town called Beaufort West, a speck of dust in the vast Karoo Desert. His father was a poor missionary, his mother a schoolteacher. Their house had no electricity, no running water, and no luxury except for an old piano and a fierce belief in perseverance. Bernard's childhood was not an easy one. One of his brothers died of heart disease at just 5 years old, a wound that would never truly heal, but would later drive him to understand the organ that failed his family. He was, by all accounts, a determined and restless young man, intelligent, ambitious, and occasionally rebellious. In school, he once said, "If I could not be the best, I would rather not compete." That stubborn streak would later carry him far beyond the dusty roads of his hometown. After studying medicine at the University of Cape Town, Barnard began working as a general practitioner in rural areas, often driving miles across barren land to treat patients. But his curiosity burned too brightly for a small-town practice. In 1955, he earned a scholarship to study at the University of Minnesota, where he worked under one of the world's top heart surgeons, Dr. Owen Wangenstein. It was there that Barnard learned the art and obsession of cardiac surgery. He studied new techniques for open heart operations and organ transplantations, fields still in their infancy. He was tireless, often working 16-hour days, sketching surgical procedures late into the night. When he returned to Cape Town, he brought with him a vision so bold that even his colleagues thought it impossible: replacing a human heart. By the mid-1960s, Barnard was leading the cardiac surgery department at Grote Schuur Hospital. He was brilliant, but also controversial, confident to the edge of arrogance, charming but impatient with bureaucracy. Animal heart transplants had already been attempted around the world. Dogs, chimpanzees, even baboons. Most of them survived only hours or days. The technical question was simple but cruel. Could a human heart be transplanted before the body rejected it? Barnard's answer was always the same: we won't know until we try. Behind that confidence, though, was enormous pressure. South Africa was not an international medical center. The country was isolated, and apartheid politics made global cooperation difficult. Barnard was aware that if he failed, if the first patient died quickly or the surgery went wrong, his career and reputation would be over. But he also knew what was at stake. He once said, "It's better to try and fail than to live with the knowledge that you never dared." That December night, Barnard and his team prepared for something no one had ever done before. The donor was a young woman named Denise Darval, who had been killed in a car accident. Her father agreed to donate her heart, a decision both courageous and heartbreaking. The recipient was Louis Wishkansky, a diabetic grocer whose failing heart had left him days from death. For 9 hours, Barnard and his team worked in silence. They cut, sutured, and connected. The room was so tense that nurses could hear each other's breathing through the surgical masks. Then came the moment. The new heart, cold, lifeless, was placed into Wishkansky's chest. Barnard leaned over and whispered, "Gentlemen, this is it." He unclamped the arteries. Blood surged through the veins. The heart twitched. Then it beat. Thump. 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 A new rhythm. A new life. a new chapter in human history. For a few days, the world celebrated Barnard as a hero. He appeared on television, met presidents, and was compared to Galileo and Pasteur. But fame came with a cost. Louis Wishkansky survived only 18 days. His new heart worked perfectly, but his immune system failed. Barnard was devastated, though he pressed on. He performed more transplants, refining the procedure, pushing boundaries. Yet the spotlight began to burn. He was handsome, witty, and suddenly world-famous, something few scientists ever experience. Magazines called him the surgeon with movie star looks. He began attending galas, dated actresses, and became a symbol of a new scientific age. But behind the glamour, he battled exhaustion, depression, and the heavy weight of expectation. As he once said, "You become a prisoner of your own success." Eventually, arthritis in his hands forced him to retire from surgery. He turned to writing, philosophy, and public speaking, often reflecting on life, death, and the meaning of human achievement. Christiaan Barnard died in 2001 while vacationing in Cyprus at the age of 78. But his story, the man from a dusty town who dared to stop and restart the human heart, still beats through history. He proved that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. That progress demands risk, and that innovation, at its core, is an act of faith. Perhaps his most powerful quote captures the spirit of his life. The prime goal is not to live forever, but to create something that will. And he did. Every heart transplant today, every saved life that once seemed impossible, carries a trace of his dream. Christiaan Barnard changed the world not because he sought fame or perfection, but because he dared to open the human chest and the human imagination at the same time. He taught us that the boundaries of possibility aren't drawn by nature, they're drawn by courage.